Hello and welcome to Illuminating the Stories That Bind Us. I am your host and illuminator, Jennifer Carey. Join us on our mission to shine light on the false narratives and limiting beliefs that are holding us back from joy, bliss, and healthy relationships. Hello and welcome back to Illuminating the Stories That Bind Us. True or false? People need people. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think people need people? Do you think, no, we can survive on our own, that we can be an island? In today's episode, we are going to talk about the importance of asking for and receiving help. And I want to talk about it from a social perspective, so perspective of what our society supports. I also want to talk about when we need help, when we need to ask for and receive help. And I also want to talk about ways that we can overcome the stories that keep us between asking for and receiving help. So in other words, there's us. We have a challenge that we've experienced or an obstacle that we're facing. We need help, but we have a story that's keeping us from doing that. So I'm going to talk about all those things as well as what I call in my book shift tips. Say that fast 3 times, right? Shift tips. And these are basically tips that help you either change your perspective or do something a little bit differently in order to break through those stories that are keeping you from asking for and receiving help. So beginning with the social perspective, we live in a individualistic society versus a collectivist society. So in other words, the majority of America values independence, competition, personal achievement. Whereas collectivist cultures or societies really believe in identifying as or in relation to a group. And there's interdependence that is valued, that we rely on each other as a whole. As a therapist during the global pandemic in 2020 and beyond, when new families were trying to survive without extended family members. So we're talking about the time when you weren't allowed. In so many other words, it was considered dangerous to get out of your pod. And so new couples with their new baby would be in a pod and they wouldn't be able to receive help or support from friends or family. That is when I saw it. That is when it was so clear. I had already known it, but it was so clear. We need people. So in that beginning, when I said true or false, people need people, I personally believe we need people. So that was just one example, having a new life and the support that a mother and father or mothers or fathers need when they have a new life to take care of. There are other times I think we really need support and we could really use a collectivist society, and that is when there's loss. So by loss, I mean loss of a relationship, job loss of a death, so loss of a loved one. All of these losses, I really feel maybe there are times when you need to be grieving alone, but there are a lot of times when you need the support of others. Significant decisions. I I believe that when we are making significant decisions, that it's really helpful to have the support of other people. Whether we're talking about a location change or we're talking about a career change, it's extremely important to have these other supports. Relationship challenges. When you are having conflict or a communication breakdown, it's really helpful to be able to talk to other people about it, whether it's within a friendship or within a relationship. It's really important. There are so many other times I believe that we need help and support from other people. But those are just some of the ones that I know from personal experience. So times when I reached out for help. I reached out for help when I had relationship challenges. I reached out for help when I was trying to decide on a major in college. I reached out for help when I was trying to decide on location changes. I really believe in using a support system to help you. And that support system could be friends and family, 100%. I also believe in using objective guidance, right? So having someone outside of your system, whether it's your family system, who can help you. So this is all, what Jen Carey believes. Great, great, great. Jen, that's fine. But what about all of the stories that people have that get in the way of being open to and receiving help? So just even asking for help, especially in an individualistic society, right? That could be seen as weak. You're supposed to be able to do it you're on your own. What do you mean you need help? Right? I think a lot of us carry a story of fearing of being a burden. So many of us don't want to put our problems on someone else. Or sometimes the problem itself is something you're afraid to express, right? So these are all stories that get in the way of even asking for help. So it takes so much courage. My last two podcasts, the last one I was with a healer that I had worked with, and the one before that was with my coach. And I remember specifically the healer, Lisa Desrosiers, had said to me, what what brought you to me to receive healing and help? And I remember it was during a really difficult and dark time, and she said, "But what kind of had you choose me? What was it?" And we talked it through. It was intuition. And then it wasn't until after the podcast was recorded that I realized that it was a time that brought me to my knees. It was times where you get to this point of surrender where it's like, I need help. I am stuck in a pattern, or I am finding it challenging to go to work, to talk with my partner, whatever it is. And so there's this recognition that you need help. And then there is the courage. And she really pointed that out, that it takes courage to then ask for help and courage to receive help. And so that's where I want to go in this next part of this podcast is our resistance to receiving help. So I talk about this a lot in my book, and I think it's important to bring up here. Illuminating the stories that bind us, right? So my book is all about shining light on the story that's holding you back between you and a life of joy, bliss, healthy relationships. What are these stories that are holding you back? And then how can we transform those stories? So once you shine light, how can we transform those stories? I sometimes have difficulty even having people illuminating their story. So I wrote a whole section on the obstacles of illuminating the story, the obstacles of transforming them. And the obstacles of illuminating and transforming our stories are some of the reasons that I gave already, right? The stories that we have of not wanting to be too much, not wanting to be seen as not enough or weak, not wanting to have anything that we share judged as, being something wrong with us. But there's even more stories of being afraid of change, right? Sometimes people don't want to change. And when we start looking at the stories that are holding us back, we can't unsee them. So often people will be afraid of that. That means that's a first step towards change, a change that you want if you want more joy and bliss and your dreams and the things that you want in life and healthy relationships. It's what you want, but it's amazing how these fears can just step in and distract you and just be like, never mind. Sometimes we don't want the change. We don't want the identity change. We're afraid we're going to be shunned. Sometimes it's a pattern and almost an addiction. So you may, and I'm not just talking about an addiction of, drinking or drugs or sex, or I'm talking about the addiction to the familiar. So you may not want to change the pattern because it's all you know. And so if we're going to illuminate this story, say even some of the stories that I've brought to you personally, some of my people pleasing stories and like that I need to please other people or fix other people. It wasn't easy. It wasn't like I was like, okay, I want to change these things and that okay, we're done. I hit bump and layers because I was afraid, like, this is who I am. I am known as someone who just drops everything and sometimes denies self in order to help others. So to change that, would people shun me and not like me anymore? Would they judge me as selfish? Like, there's so many of these stories that we can hit. So I'm going to zero in on the fear of identity change and talk a little bit about these shift shift tips. Again, say that really fast, and see if some of them could help in shifting the story. So one of them is if we could hold two truths simultaneously. So, yes, there may be a part of my people pleasing or role that may shift, but couldn't it be true that I take care of myself and I help empower other people? Right? Why is it black and white? So, whatever it is that you want to change or bring to therapy or illuminate, why does it have to be black and white? Can't you still hold on to a part of you? Right? Let's see some other ones. Okay. The idea of being shunned by it. A shift tip is, well, what's more important? Your dreams and making yourself happy, or making other people happy and making sure that they feel at ease about any changes that you want to make, right? So this is another one. um Another shift tip is really checking out how much you're getting help and changing and making positive changes is going to impact others in a negative way. Really taking a moment to see if that is true. Because a lot of times, what I try to point out for clients is if you're really happy, if you're doing really well, isn't that going to be helpful to others? Isn't that going to enhance your other relationships? And I realize that there might be some cases where no, it changes it so completely that it doesn't work. So it's not an absolute. But for a lot of people, and even on my own journey, I was so afraid that I would lose family and friends. And there perhaps maybe are people that have fallen away because they don't support me going from I'm not going to pursue my dreams, I'm not going to follow my dreams, I'm just going to please everyone else to following my dreams. It's true. There may be some people who have had challenges supporting that. But for the people that were not impacted by that and are still with me, I think they get a much better version of me. Uh, and so just remembering that these positive changes, if they're going to help you and make you happier, there's a really good chance it's also going to help, how you show up in relationships. Really, we have to think about what we really want. And if what you really want is positive changes, and yes, you can get support and help and healing from friends and family and clergy and maybe something else I'm not thinking of, right? Some people look to nature, some people look to pets. These are all absolutely possible. But sometimes you may want another person, and sometimes you may want that person to be objective. And so I invite you to look at the stories that are keeping you from asking for and receiving help, and make sure that that's not keeping you from living your dreams, from living a life of more joy, a life of more bliss. Making sure that a story or false belief isn't holding you back, isn't binding you. And if you feel that my services would be helpful in helping you with whatever challenge you're facing, whatever obstacle you're facing, whatever story you're holding that's keeping you from achieving what you wish to in this life, please contact me and we can schedule a free consult to see if we're a good fit. And I would be honored to help you learn whatever lessons you need to from whatever challenge you're facing, help you illuminate the stories that are binding you, and help you break through them. So you can find out more about those services at www.jenniferhcarey.com/services. So again, that's JENNIFERHCAREY.com/services. And I look forward to helping you in any way that I can, and hope that this podcast has enlightened you to look at some of the barriers you may have in allowing help and support in your life. Take good care. Thank you so much for listening. If you have found any of this inspiring or helpful, please share this episode with a friend. Visit www.jenniferhcarey.com for more information about my psychotherapy and coaching services, as well as upcoming events, workshops, and retreats. Wishing you joy, freedom, and healthy relationships.